The Mini Show. Let's talk paranormal. Mr. Phoenix Nicole. We go where the dark is normal. The Mini Show. Say it loud, say it slow.
And don't forget, let's talk paranormal.
Oh, it's Friday again. Man, this week is going by fast.
Heck yeah, it is.
So we've got a wonderful, wonderful guest. We have a professor, Professor B, and we're going to be talking Bigfoot. Are you ready? Here we go.
Hello, everybody. Hello.
I had to get the applause for you.
Thank you. Thank you.
So, what?
I'm hoping
really-
we talk more than Bigfoot. Bigfoot is, of course, he's the most popular of all the cryptids. But since I'm up here in Jersey, I've been focusing a lot more even on the Jersey Devil.
Ooh, that would be interesting to talk about. Too.
We could talk about a whole bunch of cryptids and other paranormal insight stuff. Definitely.
That right there, your alien is taller than my little buddy. That was, yeah. He was. He's 3 foot. He was
Taller than Vinny?
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Yeah, these are, I think, 4.5 feet tall.
Yep.
Two,
Real-
Alan and Eileen, the aliens. Yeah.
That's what we could have dressed Vinny up as an alien. He would have been a cool alien.
Oh yeah, he a little bitty guy come running at you with a phaser.
He was the one on the end of the video.
Yes, he was.
Yeah.
Yeah, he passed away in June, so I kept him on the intro and everything.
I'm sorry to hear that.
It's okay.
Who did the music? The music was great too.
I did a wonderful tool called Suno and used AI.
Oh, nice. That's excellent.
So what got you into like the start of this? What?
Yeah. So, way back, long time ago, probably, 40 some odd years ago, I studied some of this stuff in school. I initially went to school for anthropology, archaeology, folklore, everything else.
Mm-hmm.
And that all, it's funny because I can actually pinpoint when all of this started for me, which was probably maybe 4 or 5 years before that. When I was maybe, I guess about 12 or 13 years old, I went to see a double feature.
Mm-hmm.
I don't even really have those anymore. But it was Clash of the Titans and Raiders of the Lost Ark. And I was
Heck yeah.
So Clash of the Titans.
Those are good movies.
Yeah, I had grown up watching Ray Harryhausen's stop motion animation, Jason and the Argonauts, the Sinbad movies, and of course, like his magnum opus was Clash of the Titans, Medusa, Calibos, Pegasus,
Giants and everything.
What was the little owl?
The owl was, oh my God, Bebo. Bebo, right?
I'm not sure.
Of course, he was my favorite.
Yeah, but all of those creatures that inspired my love of monsters, which of course ties into all the cryptozoology that I've been involved with over the years. And then Indiana Jones, in my eyes, is the greatest action adventure hero of all time. All these ancient mysteries and that he's pursuing and everything else. And even this whole Professor B character is actually really an homage to that. This whole intrepid explorer thing that I do at conferences, conventions, podcasts, television appearances, different things like that. I appear like this, but this character also is it's involved in other things too. It's not like that. It's going into books and everything. It's part of a whole thing I launched last year, but I can get more into that. But anyway, so I loved, from that moment when I saw those two movies, I was really hooked. And then I had always, I think, been interested in, you know, uh, ancient mysteries,
Okay.
all the things that kind of didn't make sense to me. And then, of course, anything having to do with mythology. And, there wasn't much growing up having to do with cryptozoology, even shows like way back in the day, like In Search of and stuff like that. They would touch on maybe the abominable snowman or the Loch Ness monster. And, you know, and then those two, and then Bigfoot, those three, that was really it. It wasn't until more recently that this whole ended up um, just coming out of school with a degree in English. And within a few months of getting out of school, I became an air traffic controller. And that's actually my bread and butter. I've been an air traffic controller for the past 35 years.
Wow.
But I still always studied all these things. I've read dozens and dozens of books having to do with all, cryptozoological and paranormal topics and everything. And I when I went to pursue advanced degrees and everything else, it was really still more related to aeronautical science, air traffic control, everything else. So, I mean, I have taught English at the college level, but mostly what I do teach are aviation related things because that's been my primary career.
Okay.
But still, like I said, I've studied all of this stuff almost as a hobby. And then a handful of years ago, especially when I got closer to retirement from the FAA, I mean, I still technically, I do work for the FAA, but I'm nearing retirement. And it was another epiphany for me. I went away, my wife and I, with friends, and we went on a cruise to a couple of ports in Mexico, Honduras, Belize, and everything, and a lot down there. They have all Mayan pyramids, everything else. We went to one of those Mayan sites, and they had different temples and everything, pyramids and everything, and it all came flooding back. And I was just like, you know what? I don't really want this to just be a hobby anymore. I want to become more of an expert in some of these things. So I actually went back to school. And even though most colleges don't have traditional coursework in some of these subjects, I went to a non-secular university and actually got doctorate degrees in metaphysics, parapsychology, and cryptozoology was a part of what I studied, specialized. Okay. And became not that you need this, but I became a certified cryptid and paranormal investigator and everything else. So even though because it's more non-traditional academics, I don't call myself doctor, even though I earn doctorates, whatever, and I put in all the coursework, whatever. I just call myself professor, mostly because I've been a professor for 17 years. And a lot of my students do call me Professor B. So then it's my life kind of took an interesting arc, because at the same time, when I was more or less, deep in the library with all of the research into all of this stuff, I said, there's some things I want to do out in the field too. One of those things were, because I've been on investigations out in the field, whatever. But one of the things I really hadn't done was gone to some of these conferences and met other people in the field and done things like that. And it just so happened that someone who's my colleague right now, this guy, Mike O'Connor, more than a year ago, he has hosted the same conference that I've been involved with now. He started hosting it nearly 4 years ago. And when I looked at this, when I was looking at different conferences to maybe get involved with as a volunteer, this one that he was hosting just happened to be about 2 miles from my house. And
Wow.
he had phenomenal guests. He had the late Dr. Jeff Meldrum, who was a huge Bigfoot, big in the Bigfoot world because he studied a lot of anatomy, collected, hundreds of footprint casts and everything else. So he was a major person in the field, someone I admired. I'd watched him on TV for years. We had Mireya Mayer from Expedition Bigfoot. And then, Ronnie LeBlanc, who had also been on Expedition Bigfoot, Dave Schrader, who's big in the paranormal world. So we had these incredible guests from the cryptid and paranormal world. And I got involved, but before long, I wasn't just a volunteer. I was running parts of it. I became very, very involved in that, which I hadn't expected. But it was great being able to kind of hobnob with some of these people that I had only seen on TV in the past. Lyle Blackburn, all these people it was amazing, to meet and to speak with, see their lectures, but then to talk to them privately too.
Mm-hmm.
And then this earlier this year, when I launched the company that is it's called Wicked Cryptids. Wicked Cryptids. It's a kind of blend of some of the stuff that I'll be doing as Professor B, which I have 3 books that are in the works right now. One is fictional that I actually wrote part of it years ago called Maddie and the Monsters. But it blends cryptozoology, witchcraft, a whole bunch of different things. And I have 2 that are more related to the research I've done. One's called Jersey Devil Dilemma, because the thing is, we can talk a little bit about the Jersey Devil and any other cryptid, whatever. But the Jersey Devil is kind of a unique one because there weren't. It's not like there were reports of some winged devil-like creature out here, that whole legend was just a legend, and that legend was really born out of religious defamation, religious condemnation. The person that it's really named after, Daniel Leeds, it was called the Leeds Devil for nearly 200 years. It was called the Leeds Devil because he was kind of anti-Quaker. The Quaker elders didn't like it. They called him the harbinger of the devil. They said his wife was a witch. They gave birth to demonic offspring. That's where it came from. So the question is, and what I'm trying to explore in this book is, all right, if it was really just a legend and everything, what are people seeing? What are these reports that they have? So that is, I'm exploring that. And there's another book that I'm doing that's really just Wicked Cryptids of New Jersey is the first one. So I got three of those things in effect, but that one that I talked about that's fictional, Professor B as a character is actually partially in that book.
Okay.
Well, because there's different things, even when, if you ever looked at that recent conference that we did this year, which I'll talk a little bit more about, but Professor B was almost kind of a character. It wasn't just like me. It was
right.
A character like this intrepid explorer that's involved in all these different things.
Okay. So what encounters have you actually had? Have you had any?
So on the cryptid side, no, I have not. And that's really where my interest lies.
Okay.
But I've had a paranormal encounter, and I have a pretty cool, more or less a ghost story and a UFO story. And I'm happy to share both if you like.
Sure. That's not a problem. I'm okay with it.
Sure. Okay.
Heck yeah, I want to hear it.
Sure. All right, so let's start with the ghost story first. So again, a long time ago, probably I want to say maybe 1993. I was living up with someone in Hoboken, New Jersey, and about 3 in the morning, I'm lying in bed, dead asleep, and I feel my arm lifting up off the bed, and I kind of, open my eyes, my sleepy eyes and everything, trying to adjust to, it's still dark and everything else. And I was kind of almost in shock because I was looking at this gaunt figure, long dark hair, with a grayish white dress. And then when I kind of realized, and basically it was holding my hand. And when I realized what was happening, I kind of panicked. My eyes popped open, my hand dropped down to the bed, and she was gone. I mean, my girlfriend at the time, I was, kind of basically living with, was just like scared the hell out of her. But so when that happened, I mean, I can't say I was ever a big believer in ghosts or whatever, but it was enough to really give me pause to be like, what the hell just happened?
Right.
In 1993, we didn't have cell phones or the internet. We didn't have any of that stuff.
Nobody really talked about the paranormal then either.
Right. But then years later, I looked up on the internet just, hey, is there any paranormal activity reported in this area? And yeah, lo and behold, like pretty much the adjacent building, there's a century-plus-old bar and restaurant there called the Brass Rail. And in 1904, a bride on her wedding night fell down the stairs and broke her neck. Her husband was so distraught he killed himself the same night.
Oh my God.
And different paranormal groups and everything have gone out to this location. And they said, yeah, it's a hotbed of paranormal activity. So, in this professor role that I'm in, even though I consider myself a believer, I also try to look for rational explanations. So, I think back to what happened that night. Now, did I actually see a ghost bride that night, or could it have been something else? Now, I know 1993 or whatever, this pretty much also coincided with the X-Files starting. I was a big fan. Did any of that seep into my unconscious? Did I just have some crazy Thai food that gave me wacky nightmares or something like that? I don't know. But the thing is, there is something, called the hypnagogic state. It's that period between sleep and wakefulness. It's when we have the most fantasies occur and in different visions and stuff like that. All these hallucinations, whatever, it occurs in that kind of state. So it's hard to say how much of it was my subconscious or did I really see something? Because the truth of the matter is that something like that with my arm lifting up and drop, it had never happened to me before nor since. So I don't know.
Yeah, but how cool too that there was an actual death or killing like in that same vicinity to kind of go along with what you saw and everything, and you didn't know that prior to being there. So I mean, it's kind of cool if all of that correlated all at that exact moment for whatever particular reason. It catapulted you into where the rest of your life was going.
Yeah. So like right now, I'm friends with so many paranormal investigators that do all kinds of ghost hunting and everything, and it's like I do feel almost a little honored that I've had that kind of experience. It was so so strange. Like I still, even though it happened so long ago, I can still feel it. It was just so weird, so strange. I am hoping to have a cryptid encounter someday. I've been out on Bigfoot expeditions, Jersey Devil. In fact, after the conference we had this past June, one of the guests we had was a a guy named Jason Kenzie and his colleague, this guy Ron Howes, who does Biker Bigfoot, goes to events and stuff like that. But they do, Jason Kenzie, he does a series called Searching for Sasquatch. But he doesn't only go out looking for Bigfoot. He kind of is a jack of all trades when it comes to this stuff. He explores different cryptids. He's done like the skunk ape in Florida and other things throughout the country. He's been up in the Pacific Northwest. He does paranormal events. In fact, he's right now filming something on monsters and everything. They're out in England right now, filming and exploring.
Oh, wow.
Ghosts and castles and possible cryptids that live up there in the UK. But anyway, we did a hunt for the Jersey Devil, and we actually went out to the Jersey Pine Barrens and filmed one of his episodes that they're on not only like YouTube and stuff like that. They're on Amazon Prime and Tubi and all kinds of different streaming channels. So hopefully that'll be out, if not later this year, maybe early next. So that was cool. We didn't find any proof of the Jersey Devil, but then again, I didn't really expect that we would. Because the Jersey Devil, like I said, is one of those cryptids that really, since it was born out of a legend, it was probably like what people are probably seeing are other animals that are being misidentified. And if you want to know something interesting about that area, the Jersey Pine Barrens, I would never think that there could be any cryptids living in New Jersey. Is the most populous state compared to the size. How could anything actually exist out here and be undiscovered? Is it remotely possible? But the Pine Barrens is anywhere from like 1.1 to 1.4 million acres of land, forested land, some of which has never been explored. Humans have never set foot because of dense brush and swampland and everything else. And there's a group out here in New Jersey. Are you guys familiar with the BFRO? Have you ever heard of them? It's the Bigfoot Field Research.
I have not.
Nope.
Okay. The BFRO, they're all over the country. But there's a chapter right here in South Jersey, and they go out periodically and they do different research expeditions. They do it in, others do it in Pennsylvania, they do it in New York, they do it all over the country. But there is a group here, and they not only do they firmly believe that there are Bigfoot that live in New Jersey, which Bigfoot, Pennsylvania, New York, whatever, they consider those areas, if the cryptid actually exists, they call it like the Eastern Bigfoot. It's supposedly a little smaller than its Pacific Northwest cousins.
Okay.
But yeah, so they not only firmly believe that a creature does exist out here, they say that many of the reports that we get of the Jersey Devil are actually misidentified Bigfoot sightings. Because when you read a lot of the Jersey Devil accounts, they don't talk, most of them don't talk about some large creature with, bat-like wings and everything else. They usually describe something fast and furry moving through the forest that they're just getting a fleeting glimpse of. Some even describe it with simian features, ape-like features. That sounds more like a Bigfoot and not like, some devil-like beast that's been tormenting the Jersey Pine Barrens for 300 years.
Right. So where do you stand
So,
on your theory? Go ahead.
Sorry.
Go ahead, Nicole.
Yeah, good. Cool.
Oh, I was just wondering, as far as the Jersey Devil was concerned, what is the biggest or most pronounced actual evidence of it in existing, or what is it that everybody is it just like everybody sees it and they have their story to tell? Is there actually any evidence itself that it exists?
Yeah, so there's really no tangible evidence other than eyewitness testimony, which is not concrete. But just since we are talking about the Jersey Devil, I'll just do I'll try to do a quick recap with it. So a lot of this dates back to the legend. For those people that are listening that might not be familiar with the Jersey Devil legend, basically, on a frigid February night in 1735, Mother Leeds, who had already had 12 children that she was caring for, she was about to give birth to her 13th. And she exclaimed, "Let this one be the devil," because I guess she was so exhausted and just fed up with it. This one be the devil. And then supposedly the child was born, beautiful blonde hair, blue-eyed baby boy that almost instantly transformed into this hideous creature with bat-like wings, this horse-like head, horns, hoofs, forked tail, and razor-sharp claws. And it supposedly slit the throat of the midwife, flew up the chimney, and has been tormenting the Pine Barrens ever since for the past 100 years.
Wow.
That's the legend. But like I said, this was probably tied a lot to that religious defamation and everything else. And the truth is, the legend should have just died. There weren't that many reports of anything, way back.
I wonder if it's like a story to tell your children to kind of keep them in line.
Hold on, and that's exactly right, Mr. Phoenix. That is an excellent point, because that's what they did. They treated it like the boogeyman. If you go out into the woods or whatever, the Jersey Devil's going to get you. Yes, parents definitely told their children that. So in some of the books I've read on it, there are a couple of, I would say, important books or people that really kind of did deep dives into this. One of the first was back, I think, in the 70s by guys named McCloy and Miller. And they did a couple of books. They did one just called The Jersey Devil and another one called Phantom of the Pines. And then another one I like especially because the guys that wrote this book, they're also academics. And you don't see a lot of people in the academic world that will, actually give real research into these kind of, subjects that, a lot of people just brush off as nonsense. But they did. So these guys, it was Doctors Brian Regal and Frank Esposito.
Okay.
And they wrote this book called The Secret History of the Jersey Devil, how how the Quakers, hucksters, and Benjamin Franklin created a monster. So they talk some about a little bit about that religious defamation that you had this Daniel Leeds who he and his son, they both wrote this almanac, but the almanac included a lot of like astrological stuff and everything, like tied to like zodiac, astrology, witchcraft, like that. The Quakers did not like that. That's why they really were anti-Daniel Leeds. Benjamin Franklin, how he came into the mix was that that almanac that the Leeds family had already been around 10, 20 years. And Benjamin Franklin came around as a young publisher, and he had his own almanac, Poor Richard's Almanac. They were direct competition. He was in Philly, and the Leeds family were in South Jersey, very close. So he basically he really played up the Leeds family evil history big time. And one of the things that really kind of propagated it is when Daniel Leeds' son, Titan Leeds, took over that almanac. He put the Leeds family crest on the almanac. And that Leeds family crest has 3 creatures that look like these bipedal dragons. They're called wyverns in old, English or whatever. They look like bipedal dragons.
Okay.
And they very much look like any of the pictures you see of the Jersey Devil today. That's kind of like what they look like. So that's really where a lot of it came from. You don't have many reports. And like I said, this probably should have just gone away. The reason it didn't is because in 1909, and you guys may have heard of this or not, 1 week in 1909, what they call it Phenomenal Week, there were hundreds of reports of the Jersey Devil all over South Jersey and parts of Pennsylvania. And because of that, because of all of these eyewitness reports of something being out there, footprints in the snow, this was January of 1909, January 16th to the 23rd. Before that, it was just known as the Leeds Devil. But this is kind of a crazy thing that happened. It was so popular in the newspapers that this promoter, which those guys, they called a huckster, those guys that wrote the book. This guy, Nathaniel Jeffries, he was a promoter for this dime store museum in Philadelphia called the Ninth and Arch Museum. It's kind of like a Ripley's Believe It or Not. Had some really hoaxy exhibits and had some performers and had some other stuff. This guy saw how popular the Jersey Devil was. Well, the Leeds Devil. And he said, let's stage a capture of this thing and we'll put it on display. So that's what they did. They publicized it. And I don't know how they did this, but they somehow trucked down a kangaroo from Buffalo, New York. They painted it green. They put wings on its back and horns, and they put it in a cage, like a darkened cage in the back. And when they brought people in to basically see this thing, they had a boy stand behind a curtain with a stick with a nail on the end, and it would jab this thing and get it to screech. And it was a wildly popular exhibit. And after that, I've been both from a newspaper report and from the exhibit itself, it started to be called the Jersey Devil. And the name just stuck because it's a catchier name. And like I said, that was 1909. And by 1938, the Jersey Devil was named New Jersey's official state demon. I don't know if any other state actually has a state demon.
I've never heard of that.
But we do. And over time, it kind of just seeped into pop culture. But Nicole, like you had asked, there's really no tangible proof. There's, unlike where with Bigfoot, occasionally they collect hair samples, they collect footprints, they collect
scat,
other stuff like that. And these things are tested, and usually they're either inconclusive or they say it's too related to human DNA or whatever. There's nothing. I've never heard of anything really other than the eyewitness accounts and footprints in the snow, and even the footprints have a very, very questionable. These hoof prints that they found.
Okay, I think the footprint was any different, or like what exactly their footprints look like. But you just answered that just talking.
They kind of, the footprints supposedly range in size anywhere from normal horse-sized footprints to I've heard, I don't know if this is true, I've heard there were as small as 18 inches. I'm not sure. There's so much misinformation with this stuff, even with research. But I heard another account. I'm not 100% certain this is true, but another colleague in the field who I respect, this guy named Tony Girolamo, he used to he writes a book series called The Pineys, and it's all about these group of hunters that they hunt the Jersey Devil's kin. So it's all these different demons and stuff that he writes about in this, it's not a comic, but he formally has written comics. He's written for The Simpsons. He's written for other comedy shows and everything else. Tony was recently on a podcast, and he was talking about some of these different reports, and he brought up the whole thing with footprints. Now, what he had mentioned, I have to dig a little deeper to see where he got it, but he said that there was some guy around the same time in the Pine Barrens that basically in that same winter month, snow on the ground and everything else, this guy had, I guess, nailed horseshoes to pieces of wood that he strapped to his feet. And he went around because he was a thief and he was peering in windows and everything to see if there was anything to steal. And he didn't want his footprints to be discovered. There were horseshoe prints all over, back then. And he was trying to mask it. It's interesting. I've heard of stuff like that before. I haven't seen it in some of the things I've read. So I'm going to dig a little deeper into that one because that's it's interesting if that.
So the Jersey Devil has the horse head and horse legs.
So the Jersey Devil, it's strange. If you look at the pictures, it is very bizarre looking because it almost looks like it has the legs of a crane, very thin, spindly legs that almost bend backwards. It has a forked tail. It has a long neck, at least from the illustrations, a long neck. It has a dog-like head, but a cow-like face, a horse-like face. Bat-like leathery wings. And it even supposedly, well, the reports say it has two smaller arms out in front, like a T-Rex, whatever, that aren't used. Now, here's the thing. The reason I have serious questions about whether the Jersey Devil exists, at least the way people describe it, is because that description, having 2 legs, 2 arms, and 2 wings, there has never been a creature that has existed in anything in the animal kingdom that has 2 legs, 2 arms, and 2 wings. Anything, if you're talking about any vertebrates, humans, reptiles, birds, you talk about, they all descended from, supposedly evolved from 4-legged creatures, tetrapods, whatever. Then you have insects, 6-legged. You have arachnids, spiders, scorpions, ticks, things like that with 8 legs. And then there are some that have more, like centipedes could have like 16 to 30 legs. Millipedes could have even more than that. There's no creature that's ever been known to have a morphology like is being described with the Jersey Devil. So I definitely think that there are misidentifications that were involved. Like, especially if you talk about that 1909 where all those people saw. These people that gave those very, very explicit descriptions, like I just said to you, with the crane-like legs and the hoof-like feet and the arms and everything else, they're describing most of the time someone is looking out their window, and they said they're seeing this creature, giving those explicit descriptions, seeing it like on the roof of their shed, or something like that, and they're giving these descriptions. And it's, in every instance, it's around 2:30 in the morning. So my question is, this is 1909. There are no light bulbs. There were no anything. How are they seeing out into, in some instances, the woods or whatever? They're seeing a shed somewhere out in their yard at 2:30 in the morning, and they're seeing this thing so accurately. I definitely think whether there's...
I get what you're saying. I agree with you on that.
Right. It's... Yeah. I don't know. So I'm very...
The description, to me, the description that you're talking about, it kind of brings me back into the Clash of Titans that you were just talking about, because all of those different things, it's like Medusa, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, no, I know.
A Minotaur.
There's there's a lot of theories, especially the 1909 incident. People talk about what it might be. One thing some people claim, and look, I won't discount it completely, but some people compare it to a hammer-headed bat. It's the largest bat that lives in Africa, lives in Central and Western Africa. Even the scientific name has monstrous in the name. It's like Hypnosignathus monstrous, I think. But even if we said, hey, could a creature like that have come over? Could it? Yes, it could have. It could have gotten aboard a cargo ship, stayed down in the bilge, the Delaware River, which leads to the Philadelphia International Ports, whatever. It goes right by the Pine Barrens. If this thing somehow was able to survive eating, insects or rats or whatever it did to survive, and now it flew out. You have an African bat in the middle of January, dead of winter, going all over the place, possibly attacking people, attacking livestock, whatever, just trying to survive. Yes, it could be plausible, especially when you look at a picture of what that bat looks like with its face and its large bat-like wings. Oh, it is a bat, bat-like wings and everything else. The reason I am less inclined to believe that is because some of those descriptions in 1909 hopping and hopping and hopping and then eventually taking off and flying away. Mm-hmm. Only the smallest bats, like for bats, can actually do that. Something as big as the hammer-headed bat cannot. It doesn't. It from the weight, it can't do that. It would never get airborne. It can't hop. It would, if it does somehow get onto the ground, it basically has to climb up some kind of vertical surface, a tree or something else, because the way these things fly is that's why they hang upside down. It's the force of gravity. They hang upside down and they fall. And as they fall, the wind catches them and everything. And that's how they get, the thrust and the lift to basically propel them into
kind of gliding.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm a little less hesitant to believe that, since the descriptions are so similar to a crane. A lot of people even say that's what it could possibly have been. Maybe if there was one that got, who knows, parasitic infection or something, maybe, lost a lot of its feathers, maybe somehow, I don't know how its face would have become maybe engorged or whatever, but I am thinking those 1909 reports were possibly something else, something that doesn't exist. But I don't know. There's a lot of this stuff. I mean, yeah, but that's the Jersey Devil. So you want to hear the UFO story?
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah.
Go in a different direction. So, like I said, I've been an air traffic controller for 35 years. Way back when I was a relatively new controller, back in 2005, I worked at a facility in New York where we handled a lot of the flights that went out over the Atlantic Ocean. Flights to Europe, Bermuda, South America, Caribbean, all that. This particular night, I was working a midnight shift. This is not at an airport. This is one of those big buildings, no windows, and I'm looking at a radar display, which the console looks a lot like the old video games we used to play, Pac-Man and everything else. It's kind of the same, just a glass screen, and you're looking at a video map. And when planes come onto your scope, you get a little target that says their call sign and everything else, their altitude. So that's how it works in those radar environments. So on this particular night, 3 a.m. out there in New York, there's no scheduled air service. Even the cargo flights, they would pretty much come in up until whatever 12:30, 1 in the morning, and then start up again in the wee hours, whatever. But at this time, like 3 o'clock in the morning, whatever, there's nobody in the air. So I'm sitting there, and then someone calls me, and I'll just make up a call sign. I'll say American 120, to protect the innocent. So American 120 calls me up and says, "Hey, New York American 120 checking in," and he says, "Do you have anybody out here tonight?" And I look at my radar scope, and this plane coming up from the Caribbean, which let me backtrack 1 second. This plane was coming up from San Juan, Puerto Rico to Newark Airport. And it wasn't a scheduled air service flight. It's what they call a ferry flight. The pilots were just transporting the plane from Puerto Rico to New York. No passengers on board, probably no crew, just a couple of pilots.
Right.
So in the area that they traveled through, where they called me is just north of what we would regard as the Bermuda Triangle. Radar doesn't go out over. It only goes out about a couple hundred miles. The radar back then was ground based. Now we have some satellite radar. Back then this was just ground based. So this plane now just came into my radar coverage. I see it at the bottom of my scope, and I reply back, American 120, New York, negative. You're the only one on my display. Why do you ask? And the pilot comes back and says, "Well, there's something else out here," and you could hear the trepidation in his voice. And for like the next couple of minutes, the pilot and the co-pilot described to me what they were saying. They were flying a large plane, a Boeing 737. They said this craft was smaller than them, maybe about half the size of their aircraft. They said it was illuminated, but they did not see any lights, but yet it was glowing.
Huh.
And they said it was moving in a way that an aircraft cannot move. Rapid bursts of acceleration, horizontally, vertically, even diagonally, which planes can't do. So this went on, like I said, for a couple of minutes. And then their words, they described it as taking off at an impossible speed. So after that experience was over, I said to them, do you want to file a report or whatever? And they were like, no way. And I don't blame them. They would have been drug tested, alcohol tested, their credibility was right crazy. Yeah. So they didn't report it, and neither did I. And it wasn't until a little more than a year ago when I started doing some of the lectures when I appear at different conferences and stuff like that. It wasn't until then that I even shared this story. So anyone listening to this, there's some of the few people that have even heard that encounter. So it's curious. Again, like I said before, when I try to look at things a couple of different ways, like, could there be some other rational explanation? Is it that they saw something extraterrestrial or something interdimensional or something that came out of the water, or could it have been something else? So the truth is, out in the area that we're talking about, this is offshore. So now you're anywhere up to a couple hundred miles offshore. Mm-hmm. That's where they have what they call warning areas. Warning areas are operated by the military, and they're not used all the time, but they're used for testing. So they'll go out there. We'll get calls in the military fighter jets and everything. They'll go out there for training, aerial refueling, all kinds of stuff. So, now granted, there's nothing going on at 3 a.m. At the time, 30 some odd years ago, whatever, we had stealth technology. We had stealth bombers and stuff like that, where any of those stealth aircraft, basically a radar signal shoots off the ground, and those planes have all these little dents and divots and everything, and the radar beam hits it and they deflect that radar signal so that they can't be seen by air traffic controller or other aircraft. We also, at the time, had drones, unmanned aircraft and everything. Now, granted, even though we had those two technologies, we didn't have anything as advanced as what these pilots saw, or did we? The truth of the matter is that if the military had some kind of advanced technology, what better time to test it when there shouldn't have been any other scheduled aircraft out there? Air traffic control would not have been able to see it. So again, that's a possibility. I can't say for certain, what these pilots saw, but it was an interesting event that happened.
Interesting. How do you feel about what the Trump doing now and releasing the alien information?
I do think this stuff is a long time overdue. I mean, having worked for the government for so long, I've held a secret clearance for so long. There are things I can disclose, there are things I can't disclose. But I will say there's a lot that the public does not know, that I'm looking forward to some of the information being disclosed. Even for my own clarification, just to know, because I'm confident that things have been recovered. A lot of the reports we've heard, like even for example, that guy Tony D that writes the Jersey Devil stuff that I mentioned, when he was on that podcast, he was talking about a report because someone had asked the question about UFO sightings in the Pine Barrens where the Jersey Devil. And he brought up something. It's an event from 1978 that occurred supposedly at McGuire Air Force Base, which is really part of the Pine Barrens. And supposedly an MP shot and maybe even killed an alien that crossed the runway at that airport. And they said it was taken out to Ohio, this creature.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I have heard through my circles plenty of reports of different craft and everything being essentially discovered and kind of swept off to Wright-Patterson Air Force Base in Ohio.
Huh.
No one said anything. Like Tony, he didn't say Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, but I've heard too many stories about these things being recovered and being sent to that base. So
Right.
it really makes me question what was going on there. It's not just Area 51. I've heard other stuff like that too. So yeah, I'm really, really curious, and I am hoping that more gets disclosed, for the public. I know. Let's take Bigfoot for example. Bigfoot, there's so much up in the Pacific Northwest. Bigfoot used to be listed in the U.S. U.S. Army's field guide up there, and they had taken it out. What I've heard is that if, first of all, I've heard that the U.S. government has recovered Bigfoot bodies, especially after the Mount St. Helens eruption, that they had bodies that were recovered. I've heard there's so many stories that are up in the Pacific Northwest. But in this instance, what I've heard is that if the government disclosed that yes, these creatures, these rare creatures do exist in this area, in this habitat, they would become a protected endangered species, and they would close off those areas, that habitat in which they live.
Right.
There's a huge logging industry that's up there. They said that whole industry would collapse. It would be a financial disaster. So would the government keep things under wraps to protect that industry? I
Most
think,
likely.
yeah, I think they definitely would.
Yeah, because like we did an episode with me and Vinny did an episode of the Dogman, and Dogman was in Michigan,
Yeah.
and there was a gentleman that actually shot Dogman, and he was talking on his on his interview that his gun got confiscated, his Dogman got taken away, and it was by 2 black vehicles.
Yeah.
I mean, they just took everything out and just wiped it completely clean and basically told him, "Do not never talk about this."
Yeah. Oh, I've heard similar stories where people have been forced to sign NDAs and there's, and everything else. As I said, I think there's a lot that we don't know, a lot that has been kept from us. But
In your head and your heart of heart, do you think when you saw that on the screen that it was an alien ship, or do you think it was something from the military or something like that?
Oh, so that's the thing. When I looked on my screen, I couldn't see anything. What these pilots were saying, I couldn't see at all. There was no indication to me that what they were saying was on the scope.
Wow.
If they weren't telling me about it, I would have had no idea. So I am confident that those pilots saw something.
Yeah.
What they saw,
Yeah.
it's hard to say, but they, this was not like a fleeting thing. Like I do have some colleagues that are ufologists. They really get into the weeds with that stuff, and they say that a lot of the reports are that what things that people see. They said a lot of times they're satellites. Satellites is a big one. Satellites, planets, just different aircraft and stuff like that.
But the diagonal, though, I mean, I don't know.
Oh no, yeah. This report that's different. No, I'm talking about just normal reports.
Right, because I've seen I was with my stepdad, and we were in Utah, down in a valley, because we were getting ready to head out the next morning to go pan for gold.
Well, cool.
And I looked up and I saw the stars, but yet then I also have seen like the little lights go in different directions, and then it was just the diagonal that you were talking about.
Yeah. Right. So that kind of movement is something we can't as far as I know, we cannot replicate. You know what I mean? Like I've never seen it in any testing environment. And like right now, I am more on the test side, even though I'm in air traffic control. I don't work at an airport anymore or anything like that. I'm
Right.
on the test side. I've never seen anything like what this kind of stuff was reporting. But yeah.
Oh, wow. So we've got 3 minutes left. I got a couple of things. I needed to find out first, how do you feel personally about everything on the cryptids and stuff like that? Where do you lie? Do you feel that there is something out there possibly, or is people just going bonkers?
No. I'm as much as I try to look for rational explanations.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a believer. I've always been a believer.
Nice.
And too many people on the academic side, they brush this stuff off. And I think that's a bad way to be, because you know what? We only know as much, like our understanding is limited by our scientific understanding. We only know so much. I'm convinced that there's so much we don't.
Oh, yeah.
I try to keep an open mind. Yeah, I really do. So
So
I'm a
do-
believer in all of this stuff. I'm a believer. Cryptids, paranormal. Yeah.
Heck yeah. Do you have a question, Nicole?
No, not at this time.
Alrighty. Is there anything that you wanted to plug or say to the world?
I did.
You have the platform.
Thank you very much. So August 22nd, in just a couple of weeks, I'm going to be appearing at the Paracon Hollow. I'm sorry, the Hollow Paracon. the Hollow Paracon. It's a big paranormal conference that they're hosting in South Jersey, right in the Pine Barrens. In fact, the Jersey Devil is kind of pictured in a lot of their promotions and everything, which I love.
Scheduled to be there.
So the Hollow Paracon, it's going to be a phenomenal event. They're hosting it in Galloway Township. It's right near Atlantic City Airport. It's which is right down by my job, at Stockton University. And they have a lot of great sponsors, speakers, exhibitions. Even they're going to go out on a trail, like looking for the Jersey Devil and everything else. I'm going to be speaking at that event, so I'm going to be one of the guest lecturers. But they have a lot of phenomenal guests. Check out the Hollow Paracon in Jersey, August 22nd. Anyone who's in the area, it's going to be phenomenal.
Okay, cool deal. It's been a blast. I definitely want you back on.
Thanks,
And
Mr. Phoenix and Nicole. Great talking to you guys.
it was
You too.
amazing. So I'm going to go ahead and get off of here, and we will talk with you next time.
Thanks a lot, guys. Have a great night and a great rest of the summer. Take
You
care.
as well. Just
Take
remember,
care. Thank you.
Sure.
let's talk paranormal.
Come on in, don't lock that door. One more tale than we asked for more. A many, many shows.